Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars. SoundCartel. Salespeople often get a bad rap, but there are plenty of good salespeople around who do the right thing and go above and beyond for their customers and clients. It's the more unethical self-promoters, the bad apples, that can ruin it for the rest. From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. More often than not, good news doesn't make the news, and certainly not the good deeds done by salespeople. Instead, we hear about the customers who've been fleeced, ripped off, or taken advantage of. Unfortunately, sales is largely tarnished by the big brush wielded by unethical self-promoters. That's according to Sue Barrett, ethical and sustainable business growth strategist and CEO of Barrett Consulting Group. Chris Ashmore asks Sue, who are these unethical self-promoters, and how do you know if you've come across one?
Unethical self-promoters can often be incredibly charming and tell great stories and have often promises that sound amazing. Often they're too good to be true. That's one of the reasons that you should be very wary of them, because when it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. They're a very dangerous group of people, and what they like to do is take advantage of people, particularly those who may be more gullible to their stories. They're master manipulators, and they can be a bit tricky to spot, and they can infest all sorts of walks of life. So they're not just a salesperson per se. They can come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, from CEOs in the C-suite, politicians, ministers, lobbyists, doctors, lawyers. Anyone can be an unethical self-promoter, and that's what we have to be very wary of. And unfortunately, their numbers are actually rising in companies, public institutions, states and countries. They also can be seen running quasi-religious congregations. They can be in the influencer communities, as well as self-help, wellness, new age groups. And what they're trying to do is to trick people to give up their time and hard-earned money for nothing more than hype, spin, unrealistic promises, and in some cases dangerous health advice. In fact, cults couldn't exist if it weren't for unethical self-promoters looking for gullible followers.
What are some specific examples or those telltale signs of an unethical self-promoter?
How we can spot them, they'll usually be a compulsive name dropper. What will happen is that they tend to be inappropriately calm and poised when caught in a lie. If they are caught in a lie, they usually explain it away as a harmless misunderstanding. They'll engage in melodramatic use of righteous indignation to over-assert their character of credibility, integrity, trust, and those sorts of things. They usually are unable to sustain or show genuine emotion. You'll often find when you dig beneath the surface that they have few long-standing or deep-seated relationships. You'll hear them also use bizarre reasoning and self-delusion to justify their unethical behaviours. They lie all the time. So they often have concealed history of legal problems and financial misunderstandings. They talk long-term but then think and act short-term. And they use verbal ambiguity as a manipulative technique. This is what I'm saying about their messages. So they sound plausible, but they're not plausible at all. And also too, they can become quite threatening if backed into a corner, and they use a technique often referred to as gaslighting. So what they'll do is they'll make you feel like you're the one with the problem and doubt your own self. So if anyone's interested, just type in gaslighting in terms of a psychological manipulative technique often used by lots of people who want to control or dominate others, and unethical self-promoters tend to be master gaslighters.
Do you have any suggestions of what people should do if they are dealing with someone who is like this?
What we do first is that many of us just simply believe the lies and spin and too good to be true promises without doing our due diligence. So one of the things we can do is look at what they're saying and investigate what they're saying. So we must look for evidence and dig beneath the surface to see what they're saying. Is it true or not? That's number one. They also tend to rely on people's fear to take action or play it safe mindset. So when we look inside organisations that may have leaders promoting certain dubious tactics, there are people out there who are too afraid to speak up and to call out these charlatans because of what might happen to them personally, professionally and financially. So they tend to play it safe, because being a whistleblower actually requires courage that many don't exercise. So instead what they do is they stay quiet or quietly leave the organisation, which is problematic too. So we have to have, whistleblower laws in place that actually allow people to be able to speak up and call out these dubious behaviours. I mean, the Banking Royal Commission exposed this on a massive scale. There are unfortunately other people who tend to be a bit amoral. So if the boss says it's okay to do these things, they'll go, okay, well, can't see any reason why I can't do it. So we do have those people that tend to be amoral. So they'll just go along with whatever's going on the day and not call it out. So some of the things that we can do is that we can ask lots more questions, particularly how decisions are being made. And we need to be able to look for evidence and check that what people are saying is in fact for fact, not effect. We also need to be able to take time to think about and make informed decisions. Being forced into a decision by some of these unethical self-promoters is the first sign that you should actually walk away. If they're actually trying to press you into making a decision and you haven't got all the evidence and they're trying to charm you and wear you down, that's a very good sign that you should walk away and not make the decision, as in not make the decision to go with them. So your decision is to walk away. Trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it usually is. Check for their behaviours and actions. I actually think we should be running ethics and civics classes in schools, universities, businesses and organisations and communities to actually help raise our collective awareness about good governance, ethical business and community practices and standards, especially as things shift and change. So I just think it's important that we actually do that. The other thing I think is we need to revise what we think good leadership looks like. Servant leadership is in fact a very good model that we should be looking at to follow, rather than the celebrity CEO model that has sort of been part of our standard operating procedure now for the last, 15, 20 years. Those celebrity CEOs, I guarantee you, a lot of them will be unethical self-promoters and they're not leaving a good legacy. So servant leadership is a good model we could adopt. And speaking out and speaking up about unethical, immoral and illegal behaviour. So as I mentioned earlier, we need to be able to have things like a Federal Integrity Commission for Parliament. We need to have other bodies that actually can allow us to speak up and call out unethical behaviour. So that's what I was saying about whistleblower legislation and those sorts of things. So they're just some of the things that we could do to help us combat and battle these dubious creatures.
Well, wrapping up, Sue, I suppose the question is then, what is ethical self-promotion?
Yeah, well, this is the thing, isn't it? Because everybody lives by selling something. So, a lot of people only see these unethical self-promoters, which is why they have the negative feelings about selling. But ethical self-promotion is a fundamental life skill, and it's based on a realistic understanding that success in any contact-dependent career requires both effective performance and effective self-promotion. And there's a third element that helps us distinguish ethical self-promoters from their charlatan cousins, and that is a genuine respect for the needs of others. So there can be people out there who are very effective at self-promotion and selling, but they have the foundations of effective performance, substance, content, and really good values and genuine respect for the needs of others. So they work towards the greater good, not for their own self-aggrandizement. So I think that's the big difference between an ethical self-promoter and an unethical self-promoter.
That was Barrett Consulting Group CEO, Sue Barrett. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow at BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast.
SoundCartel.
This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.